Hi everyone. I'm Judy Brown, one of the managers and directors of Governance Junction. And today I have one of our other directors with me today, Derek. Derek's going to run through social purpose of not-for-profits to give you a stronger idea on what is going on with your not-for-profit. Derek has over 30 years experience, and I know he doesn't like me saying that. Do you want to stop recording?
People then work out how old I am when you say that.
Love it. And experience with governance from not only from not-for-profit point of view, but also from a commercial point of view. So, Derek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jude. I'll just share my screen here. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our third in this series of webinars and YouTube clips. These are just a quick 30-minute discussion just on topical not-for-profit governance areas that Judy and I have and continue to come across when dealing with our clients. And so we thought these were helpful to perhaps improve the knowledge and awareness of those wonderful people who volunteer on not-for-profit boards. So let's get into this one today. It is, why is the social purpose of a not-for-profit so important? And as I said, this is the third in our series of webinars. Our next ones are talking about some of the basic principles of not-for-profit governance, and we're going to get into, in the future, into the constitutions and duties and directives. You'll love that one. And then continuing on. So why is the social purpose of not-for-profit so important? Well, it is what defines us as a not-for-profit. You know, we have these terms that are like so many terms in business and management and governance that are just interchanged and thrown around. And we often hear the term social purpose or objects or purpose or charitable purpose. They are essentially the same thing. So let's just start with an overview of what the social purpose is. I think social purpose is the best term that describes really what and how, the purpose or what role it plays in your governance of your organization. So again, in our earlier videos, we talked about charities. We talked about what it means to be a charity versus not-for-profit versus a commercial organization. And just to remind us all that a not-for-profit is not there to return a economic value to shareholders. Rather, it is there to return that back into the organisation so it can deliver on its purpose now and into the future. And so the term not-for-profit, and then some of you may be amazed by this. Some of you may have seen it yourself, but go into organisations, and culturally, many not-for-profits believe that they're not to make a profit. The term not-for-profit means you don't make a profit, and that's not true. We encourage good business practice and good governance so that all not-for-profits make a surplus every year, but so that they can reinvest it back into the organisation for now and to the future. And we call it a for-purpose organisation because we think that better describes the not-for-profit sector than the term not-for-profit. We think the term not-for-profit says more about the organisation's tax status than it does about what it does. And the social purpose is what defines, it's the reason the not-for-profit exists. Now, commercial organisations this day and age are also attempting to have a purpose and to have that in their constitutions and to have that in their plaques on the wall as well, and their pictures on the wall as well. But really, at the end of the day, a commercial organisation is there to deliver that return to shareholders. Whereas a not-for-profit, it is about, being there for that social purpose. And regardless, and we talked about different structures in our previous webinar, the options for a not-for-profit structure, whether it be an association or an incorporated association, or whether it be a company limited by guarantee, it doesn't matter. That doesn't come into this. This isn't for bigger not-for-profits. Social purpose is applicable regardless of your structure, of your organisation. And it has the same meaning. This webinar we're talking about is equally applicable. It doesn't matter. That structure does not come into this. If you want to know where your social purpose is, where it's documented, and as time goes by, and we'll talk about that in a minute, many of those in not-for-profits, whether they're on boards or in their management, can sometimes forget what that purpose is. If you're looking for it, it's in your constitution or in your rules. It'll be documented in there. And as we said in the previous slide, it can be called many things, but it is essentially performs the same function in that it identifies why we exist as a not-for-profit. And I can know people are saying, well, we know what we stand for. We know why we're here. We're here to do these good things for our community. Yeah, I'm not sure why you're even bothering to spend 30 minutes talking about this. And that's a good question. But, at times we need to be reminded. If we go back to when your not-for-profit started, the founders all came together around a purpose, around a reason. We need to deal with this issue. We can do good in our community. We can do good in society. And they had that in their head. And when they start out, they're going, we need to organize ourselves into something, into a not-for-profit, so that we can go out and do good. And they then embark upon the process of setting themselves up and setting up structures and all those types of things that we've talked about in other webinars. And so back then at inception, that social purpose is quite clear and quite well understood by all. But sometimes the direction may change over time. As time goes on, maybe the purpose, the social purpose needs to be refined, maybe it needs to be expanded, and that's okay. That's okay, but that should be done, in a conscious process rather than it morph, if you like. And sometimes boards and management teams, I say, can be tempted to veer off, and the decision-making can be made in isolation of what the company stands for. And so the social purpose forms a role of that lighthouse, that guidepost to say, this is what we stand for. And why are we going in this direction? Now, there may be good reasons to go in that direction, sure, but that decision should be made, and decisions around particularly strategic direction and vision and such needs to be made in terms of what the organization stands for. That is, its social purpose. And the social purpose continues and serves as a point of alignment. So we can align the organization to something. You can go into the not-for-profit and you can say at any level of the organization, even a very large not-for-profit, and say, what does this organization do? What does it stand for? And that social purpose reminds us of what we stand for, and that's why it's so important. And we can change it, as I said. It's okay to change as long as it's a conscious decision. And this happens as organizations transition through their stage of life. As the organization moves on. 20 years ago when they set up, it might have been for this purpose. Now it's a broader purpose. Society has changed and the purpose needs to change. And that's okay. But it shouldn't just wake up after 20 years and realize that our social purpose that we've defined in our constitution is no longer applicable. You really should be looking at, in a real-time basis. So why is it so important? There has been an increased focus on social purpose by the regulators, by external actors who are looking at us, okay? And first up, it is examined more closely than it ever has by the ACNC. So when you take your not-for-profit and you go to register it as a charity, which we talked about a couple of webinars ago, they will examine your constitution against the 14 charity categories. Most importantly, they'll examine the area within your constitution or your rules that covers your purpose. And it may be called purpose, as I said, it may be called objects, it may be called social purpose, whatever, but it'll examine that piece more than anything else in your constitution. And it will determine whether you fit one of those categories, and making that determination as to whether you are a valid charity and then should enjoy the various benefits of being a charity. Okay, so that's the first thing. And that, you know, in days gone by, the ACNC perhaps, you know, was less diligent as they are these days in looking at that. Okay, so there's a real, you know, a real regulatory reason to really focus on what your purpose is within your constitution. If you then go further, either at the same time as registration or in the future, and you want to apply for DGR status, and again, something we talked about some weeks ago, and now the ATO will put your social purpose under the microscope. Again, the ATO these days are less willing to hand out DGR status than what they were a few years ago. And so they're looking more closely at this social purpose. And so it means that in putting that together, we have to not just quickly put some words together to form the company and get the boxes ticked in terms of getting registration. Now we have to consider, you know, the words we're using and how they'll be read by these regulators. So if you're going to do that, you know, and I don't want to say this is just a box ticking exercise. If you're going to do that, if you're going to spend the time putting your social purpose together, then put it together in a way and use it going forward past registration for charity or DGR status. And as we said, it provides that alignment of the organization's end state vision, its strategies, its values, its culture. It is the core to that. It is the core as to why the organization exists, what it stands for, how it treats its clients, what its direction is. All those things come back to the social purpose. And, you know, we'll talk about vision some other time perhaps, but sometimes, you know, visions, you know, have some very, I have some very defined views about what vision is. And, you know, vision and social purpose can be the same thing, but the vision tends to have more of a time horizon on it, say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, whereas the social purpose survives in perpetuity. It survives the comings and goings of board members. It survives the comings and goings of management and staff and so on. It's there long past people coming and going off those areas of governance. And it also, I don't know if you've ever had this, but we've ever gone to a meeting, you know, perhaps you're going to an organization to solicit support for your not-for-profit, or you're going to a commercial organization you want to partner with. And, you know, you often get the question, I know I've had this question, so what does your organization do? And that's a very interesting question, because it then, you know, it makes us sit up and go, well, what's the actual answer to that? And the answer comes back again to that purpose. And if that purpose is more widely understood within the organization, if it is not just something that is buried in your constitution that was put there by the founders 10, 20 years ago, and it lives and breathes, then that question is more easily answered. So I hear you saying, so what? What do you recommend I should do? You know, what should we do? Should we all go back and change our constitutions and that type of thing? Not necessarily. But certainly if you're starting up a new not-for-profit, and a lot of our webinars are, you know, helpful, I believe, to those starting up a new not-for-profit. And that's something we're involved in quite a lot, is starting up new ones. But if you are, then the founders And the founders go on to be directors, they go on to be members, they go on to be managers even. The founders, though, these are the people that have come together and said, hey, we've got this reason for setting this up. We want to do good here. Their first step shouldn't be quickly to race off to register an organisation, perhaps. The first step should be to come together in a room and rigorously debate and finesse the words that define your social purpose. And I was looking at a set of rules for a client yesterday, and in their model rules, and I was looking at their purpose in that, and it was clear that was exactly what happened, that they'd been quickly put together to quickly register an organisation with their local state authorities to register their association. Would that rules that I looked at yesterday pass muster with the ACNC? No, they won't. But it got through the process of setting them up. And I look at that and I go, oh, opportunity missed. Those founders should have come together and spent the time, take a breath, spend the time, come into the room for a day, a couple of days, whatever, even a couple of hours is better than nothing, and rigorously debate and choose the words carefully around what their social purpose is. And oh, by the way, when you do that, make sure it lines up to the ACNC's 14 categories as well. So get you through that as well. And if you're choosing DGR one day, add that in as well. So take the time up front. And this, if you have the opportunity to do that in the new not-for-profit, this is very productive and exciting part of the life of your new not-for-profit. And those that involve get a lot of energy, a lot of buy-in to that. But of course, you know, there's always seems to be a big list of things to do in starting up a not-for-profit. And so just take a breath, put the list aside and come together, sit in a room and debate it and define it. Don't waste that opportunity, okay? If you can, get that externally facilitated. That helps as well. Get somebody, you know, a volunteer or a friend, or, you know, if you've got the luxury of starting up an not-for-profit with some dollars, invest some dollars in getting that externally facilitated. Ongoing, though, for a lot of not-for-profits that are already up and running, and sorry, just got a bit of a technology problem there. Ongoing are running and have got their social purpose. Very simply, keep it front of mind. Keep it front of mind. In particular, in board meetings, remind yourself when formulating your strategies, do these strategies align to that social purpose? Or how are we veering off what we stand for? Are we getting into things that don't really matter or align to why we're here? And remember, as a board, we're answerable to the members, and the members, you know, they originate from the founders, and they've bought into the organization as members because they stand for something. So again, use it to remind yourself when you're making your big decisions, does this align to our social purpose? You know, when you're getting proposals and options for growth and for direction and such, ask yourself that question. Ask yourself within the risk framework, within your risk appetite. That'll be coming in a webinar in the future. But also ask it in terms of how does this align to what we stand for? The question, does this fit with who we are? And sometimes that gets lost. And I've been in board meetings where at times that question does not get asked as often as it should. And I think that's probably the case with a lot of not-for-profits, is they're busy being busy. They're busy dealing with all the compliance that we have to deal with. They're busy making decisions and signing things off. But again, take a breath. Does this fit with who we are? So to summarize this, the social purpose is what you stand for. It's why you exist. It goes further than just what's written down in the Constitution, but the Constitution forms that reference point. That social purpose is defined in the Constitution, in your rules, is a reference point. There is now more of a focus by others external to your organisation, and we're talking there the ACNC, the ATO, and others, looking at constitution and looking at what does this organisation stand for? Are they truly a not-for-profit? Are they truly a charity? And they're scrutinising that more than ever. And we are coming across clients who are having to change their constitution. We're coming across a few of those these days, where the ACNC has said to them, look, your constitution's 20 years old. It's no longer appropriate. We need your board to produce a new one. And that's happening more and more as well. So, you know, there's the opportunity to revisit this. It provides that alignment as to your decision-making. It's that lighthouse, that beacon that takes you back, you know, that reality check. I'm using all these different synonyms here to say that this provides that kind of wake up to say, does this match, align to who we are? And if you have got that opportunity to put a new not-for-profit together and you're part of the founders, you're part of putting that together, don't waste that time. Don't waste that time to come together as a group of people who are all like-minded, who are passionate about their purpose and passionate about doing good. Come together and work up the social purpose. Spend, you know, the organization's going to last for 20, 30, 40 years. So spend a day on defining that. Okay. So any questions? Jude, what do you think? What do you think of social purpose?
I think it's really important, because if we don't understand what direction we're going in as a board or as a committee, we're gonna clash. Because if we don't understand that, I mean, I've seen it so many times where a group of people are looking at doing something or approaching a Shire Council because they don't like how something's been treated. And you've got to pull them back as an auditor and say, hey guys, wait a second, is this a part of your social purpose? Because you're kind of leaning into a political battle that is not what you guys are there for. So you need to be really, really careful when you're interacting with other community groups and government as well. So if you don't really understand your angle, that can cause you all sorts of grief.
I'm going to quote an old friend of mine who I used to share directorships on a board with on a few boards. And he used to say, you know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Absolutely.
And it's true. And social purpose and the process of defining the future state, which many would call a vision or mission, they're inseparable. I think they're inseparable. And I've seen too many times where groups have, you know, gone away on an offsite for a weekend, off and up the Blue Mountains or somewhere nice, Terrigal, or, you know, Sunshine Coast or somewhere, go somewhere nice, drink a lot of red wine and come back with the vision. And quite often the only people who actually who take advantage from that are the people who print those visions and the people who provide frames for them to go onto boardroom walls and meeting room walls.
Yeah. And they mean nothing to anybody else. I mean,
no, and many look at them. Many organisations look at it and say, "Well, you know, it makes no sense to us. That's not what we do, and that's not who we are." And,
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it is very important. It's critical, and I have, Judy, seen so many instances where strategies are built and decisions are made, and that it doesn't even come into it, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And you sort of commented earlier about not-for-profits confusing people in the sense that, oh, we're not allowed to make a profit. Well, you actually make a surplus and you're allowed to. And it's always a good idea to make a surplus, because if you run the organisation at a loss every year, you put your equity in the organisation, the members' money, into a deficit situation. And the minute that happens, you have insolvency. And once insolvency happens, you've got it opens all sorts of cans of worms for the committee and for the directors if they don't do something about it. So I agree. A mentality of we have to run at a loss is realistically impossible to do for even a for-profit organisation. But the mentality of, oh, we ran at a loss, we have to spend all of the money right now has gotten a lot of not-for-profits into a lot of trouble because the committee are finding their own assets end up becoming available.
Oh,
If,
and
if,
that's
yep.
a really important point, Judy, really important point. And as well as spending all their money, I've seen many of them put all their surplus many years into a bank account for a rainy day. Just sits in a bank account earning point something % interest and sits there, and really, smart boards use that surplus, use that reserve, if you like. And it's okay to have a reserve for, to cover. Many do that, set up reserves to cover, say 3 months' worth of liabilities in case of a major problem.
Absolutely.
But it's a smart thing to take that money and reinvest it in smart ways to develop capability within the organisation to deliver that purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I mean, it also improves them if they're going for grant funding. They have to be able to prove, one, that they have the capacity and the skill set to actually, instigate the program. But they don't understand how to actually spend it. It's quite frightening when you see grant funding coming in and it's actually not getting spent because they've hit a huge spend earlier in the year and they're trying to play catch up.
Yeah.
Because they haven't put a budget in place. They haven't put a strategy in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not unlikely that a grant funding body will say, well, you haven't spent the money correctly. We want it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that happens all the time. And if you've got a bit of a working capital, bucket there that you build up, that helps you, because many grants, as we all know, barely cover. The grants are provided to cover just the direct costs in delivering the grant and don't cover the overheads. And this is a sad indictment, I think, on many of those that provide these grants, that they're not realistic in sort of saying, well, these grants need to be able to cover the overhead of running. It's not running the board, running, employing a manager, and they don't cover that. They just cover those direct, if you like, project costs.
Absolutely.
And having that reserve to manage that overhead is again allows you to run many grants and make them sustainable. I'm not saying make a profit off those things, make a huge surplus, but be sustainable into the future.
Absolutely, because you want to be able to go back out into the public and actually be able to be purposeful within your community. You want people to be able to look, this organisation is doing great things by us. They're transparent, their governance is solid, and we can clearly see in the community how the benefits of whatever the actual for purpose is.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I think the not-for-profit is definitely aimed towards your tax status, and they need to look themselves as more as for purpose. Once they look at themselves at for purpose, it's kind of their why. Why are we here? What do we want to achieve?
Yep, exactly. And it is okay. It is okay, folks. Say it now. It is okay to make a profit. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I think we covered that really quite nicely. But of course, if anybody, as we saw earlier, our email addresses, we can be contactable if anybody has any questions about this, or would just like to investigate sort of further and get a bit of a feel for, what their not-for-profit is doing.
Oh, and there's so much in this, and, in 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes, we can't, expect to cover all the details and the different contingencies and scenarios that are out there in this. But hopefully we're raising that awareness. Keep the social purpose front of mind. Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't forget about it after you register. Okay.
Well, that's marvelous. Our next round is number 4, which is the basic principles of a not-for-profit governance.
Yeah, we're going to talk about. We're just going to talk about the basic fundamentals of the fiduciary relationship, and again, something that gets forgotten, or perhaps many on not-for-profit boards aren't aware of. So we're just raising awareness to that one. So
absolutely, gently, softly. Nice, lovely. Well,
okay.
Looking forward to our next one. Don't hesitate to call us, guys, if you have any questions. We're happy to have a quick chat and a coffee, or just a quick chat if you're not into coffee, which is great.
Yep. Thanks, folks. Have a look for us on YouTube and our other our other, again, videos around not-for-profit governance.